Hey, what's going on? Welcome to today's episode of Juice in the Numbers. I am your host, Joshua Tracy.
I am Corwin Heller, but I just want to point out that you said "what's going on," and I feel like I've never heard you say that on here before, and it kind of threw me off. So
honestly, I threw myself off because I don't usually say that either, and I had to like reel it in and be like, "Oh fuck, what do we say next?" And then I jumped back into what we usually do. It's one of those things where it's like you're just on autopilot, and then you realize that autopilot like fucked up for a hot second, and you have to like.
Yep.
Course correct, and you're like, oh no, where am I? Out of this place isn't familiar. Yeah,
so true. So what are we doing today? Fuck it.
So we thought we would try to make use of the advanced stats as well as the, I guess, more standard statistics that are offered for the NFL via Pro Football Reference. We've talked about wanting to use them for a while. And now that we have a few weeks of data since week 5 is concluded, so every team has played, almost every team's played 5 games. A few teams have only played 4 games due to bye weeks. So now that we have like a suitable amount, we can look at and try to see which teams are perhaps underperforming or overperforming their production thus far into the season.
I know where the Steelers probably are.
Wow, Mel, I know where the Jets are, and it made me real sad. And thank God for the Yankees.
Right? Thank God for the Pirates. Oh, fuck.
Oh, the Penguins are around.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team. We're like 3 games into the season, so it's not saying much, but...
Yo, before we get into it, because this drove me crazy. So the Rangers have played 2 games so far.
Yep.
We played on, I think, Wednesday of last week, and then Saturday, and then we don't play again until like next Saturday. And it's not our bye week. They just didn't give us games for like a week.
But Mika Zibanejad.
But Mika Zibanejad's fucking booty blasting the league right now. We're 2 weeks into the season, and he still leads the league in points, and he's played 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at last year's trade between us, where I sent you Zibanejad for Matt Barzal, and looking at Barzal's numbers this year, and it's not the same.
God, I love Mika. Capo. Anyway, this is not the hockey podcast. This is the football edition of the podcast. Although, if Mika keeps doing really cool shit, we might have to have the hockey edition come back. So let's jump on into this colossal spreadsheet, which actually ended up being bigger than it needed to be because I didn't use about a third of this. And let's start just in total offense. The first tab, the normal shit, the shit we're used to seeing. And shall we just sort by yards as what tends to be the when you see like best off, like number 1 offense, they usually will go by yards for that, and then some of the nicer places will like factor in scoring and such, but yards is usually a good line of just sheer offensive production. How much are you moving the ball?
Yikes.
So by that measure, the Dallas Cowboys currently lead this list. They have 2,264 yards, followed by the Kansas City Chiefs at 2,223, the Baltimore Ravens at 2,207, and then the Rams and Jaguars round out our top 5. At the bottom of this list is the Jets. We're real bad. We have 718 yards total altogether the whole season. Second worst, the Miami Dolphins at 900. It's been rough in the AFC East. It has not been pretty at all. At least the Jets, though, can say we're missing our starting quarterback and our backup quarterback.
And you're playing with like what was Falk, like a 7th round, or no, he was a 6th round rookie last year. This year.
Last year was his rookie year, I think.
One of those years.
Doesn't matter. He was a taxi squad.
Was last year though. Because Gardner Minshew took over for Falk at Washington State.
Yeah, that's right. Whereas Miami seemingly just wanted to be like this.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, yeah. So this seems about right. The Bears are a lot lower than I thought they would be. It really goes to show, I guess, how much the defense has been carrying them.
Please stop there.
What?
Please stop there. Don't go any farther up this list.
Okay. Yeah. The Steelers. Yep. Sorry, pal. The Broncos are surprisingly high up on this list, given the fact that I thought they were doing a lot worse. But
Yeah,
this list
same.
by itself isn't going to tell us what we're looking for, because all this list is just, yards, and we want more.
Yes. Can we actually look at yards per play before we move on? Right next to it.
Yeah, sure. So by that measure, is still the Cowboys at 7.2. The Kansas City Chiefs at 7.1, Jacksonville Jaguars 6.3, also tied with the Niners at 6.3, and then a tie between the Texans and Vikings at 6.2.
That's some good stuff right there.
The Jets, Dolphins, Bears are still the bottom three at 3.2, 4, and 4.5, respectively. The only three teams below 5 yards per play.
Yeah, the Steelers jump up a little bit, and it's because they've only run 270 plays so far, which is the least in the league, which is weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means at all, but it helps the Steelers, so I'm gonna live and die by this statistic now.
You might as well. If there's anything to live and die by, that seems like a good one.
Listen, if we're living and dying, I am just straight up dying.
All right, so they then have all the passing stats and all like the total touchdown stuff and all the rushing stats and the penalty yards and blah 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 blah. I highlighted two columns here: passing touchdown percent and rushing touchdown percent. So just out of, I had to get a little bit creative with it because it doesn't have in this spreadsheet total number of touchdowns. So what I did was I took the total number of passing touchdowns and then thus rushing touchdowns individually, multiplied that by 6, and then divided that by total points. Points for, I think is what PF is what they officially called. So of the who's up at the top of this, Dallas Cowboys, of the Dallas Cowboys, 131 points for, just about close enough for rounding purposes. 50% of them have come off of passing, 20% of them have come off of rushing. So looking through, let's look at passing first. Let's just, before I ask you the question I was going to ask, let's just see who's got the most from passing. The Atlanta Falcons, 65%. Then the Washington Redskins at 58%, the Detroit Lions 56%, the Seattle Seahawks 54%, tied with Jacksonville also at 54%. And I really can't wait to share with you this one thing I saw. Let's start by rushing touchdown percent. The highest it goes is 43%, which I think is pretty interesting. The Minnesota Vikings, then the Green Bay Packers, who have never been known to have a running back core, at 40%, tied with the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns at 39%, and the Carolina Panthers at 37%. Now, Corwin,
so how did you calculate this first?
Well, real quick.
I think I know what you're going to say, but yes, go ahead.
Who do you think's on the bottom of this list?
If I was going before I looked at the bottom of the list, which I'm prone to do, as far as dead last and rushing, as far as scoring, I probably would say like Cincinnati maybe.
But you already looked?
Yeah, I did already look, but it is the Miami Dolphins.
They have 0 rushing touchdowns 4 games into the season. I don't know.
That's really not good.
Isn't that amazing?
Like, Kenyon Drake is good enough where like he'll fuck up and still get one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you don't even have to earn some rushing touchdowns. Some of them are because like some dudes fell down and like someone was close enough. Fucking Danny Dimes got one because no one covered him in Tampa. Like they were playing Tampa. He was trying to pass, and there was just no one to block. So he just like kind of waltzed in, like weird, stupid shit. And they haven't got one. It's nuts. I genuinely couldn't believe it.
Do you think that, like, how hard do you think regression is going to come for the Miami Dolphins? Do you think Kenyon Drake is going to be able to succeed this season because he's pretty much the only option there outside of Preston Williams on offense? Or do you think it's just going to be a black hole of despair for the rest of the season? Black hole of despair.
I vote for it as my prediction, and I root for it as a dissenting fan.
As a Josh Rosen fanboy, it struggles. It's a struggle to watch that team, but at the same time, It's the Dolphins, so I don't really care too much.
Yeah, fuck them. What were you going to ask me before I asked you about the bottom of this list?
How did you calculate, like, what are the percentages showing?
What percent of the total points that this team has scored have come from rushing touchdowns?
Right. Total points. I thought initially it was total touchdowns, and I was like, I am not dumb enough
you clearly tuned me out. You know
what? You know what I was doing? I was looking at the bottom of that rushing touchdown percentage list.
I was going to say it's a lot of spreadsheet. I bet you're just goofing around. Yeah, because they don't have total touchdowns like for everything put together. Because I guess then you have to include like defense and special team ones, and they don't want to do that. So what they have is points for. So it's that.
Well, for all of our listeners, now you know what it was twice. So there we go. Helping out.
There you go. So I was thinking about this after I had done it because Dallas, for instance, Atlanta. Sorry, they're at the top of my list now. Atlanta, they have 65% of their total points coming off of passing touchdowns, and only 12% coming off of rushing touchdowns.
Yes.
What do you make of this, just as a concept thus far? Do you care? Do you take anything from it? What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. They have Matt Ryan at quarterback with a great three wide receiver set with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu. And their running backs are just Devonta Freeman. That's just a shell of his former self. He's shown bursts of what the original, what we know Devonta Freeman as, but it's just, he's not the same. And outside of that, they have Ito Smith. So the fact that they just are so heavily favored in the passing game compared to the rushing game, I really would just chalk it up to that for now. I mean, Julio's been catching touchdowns again, so that's probably part of it.
Yeah. So do you think that there should be, is there a ratio in your mind that would say that's successful? Because so what I was thinking, just to add more words into the question I've already asked you, is so if you looked at a team that was 80% passing touchdowns and 5% rushing touchdowns versus a team that was 50-50, would you take value in the fact that one of those teams is 50-50? They're very balanced. Obviously, it's unrealistic, but they're very balanced and are clearly proficient at both. Or would you say, wow, team A is really fucking good at passing. Let's assume records are the same or whatever the fuck you need. As long as they're doing what works, it doesn't matter.
Basically, I would look at it and say, all right, is there a reason why they're so heavily favored one versus the other? Like last year, if you told me that the Giants had 65% of their touchdown or points coming from rushing touchdowns, I'd be like, all right, they have Eli Manning, who's basically a heart attack away from being out of the league, and they have Saquon Barkley. All right, it's favored very heavily one way versus the other. And then maybe I'd look at it and say, all right, it's heavily favored one way versus the other. Are they still scoring touchdowns, though? Because if they're still being efficient, if they're still scoring a lot of points, it doesn't matter because clearly they're being effective with how they do it and it's successful. But if they're one-sided and they're not scoring anything, then that's when it becomes a serious problem.
So let's take a look then at points for, and let's sort that largest to smallest, and then we can see what the top teams in the NFL thus far have, in terms of this category, have been doing in terms of their mixing of methods of scoring. So the number one team for points for thus far this season is the Baltimore Ravens, where they've scored 161 points. 45% of that has been from passing touchdowns, and 26% of it has been rushing touchdowns. Second is the New England Patriots, 39% passing, 23% rushing. Kansas City Chiefs, 45% passing, 20% rushing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 45% passing, 16% rushing. And we'll cap it off here at the Rams, 29% passing, 33% rushing. So they're kind of the odd bird out there. But it seems by and large that a 2-to-1 ratio is kind of what you're looking for in terms of what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all of them, most of them kind of are self-explanatory if you look into it and you think, all right, what kind of players does this team have? The Ravens are probably the most surprising just because Lamar Jackson hasn't decided he's going to run a lot this season, so that's why he's passing so much, and it's a higher passing number. The Patriots, they've always been somewhat balanced, but they still have Tom Brady there. The Chiefs, Pat Mahomes is going to be throwing the ball, so why would you try and run it solely in the red zone, whatever it may be? The Bucks have Jameis Winston and barely have any running backs at all. And then the Rams, are favored for running because they have Todd Gurley, they have Malcolm Brown, and Jared Goff has been doing quite poorly this year. So, is what it is.
I definitely think this is real quick before I move on. Just because I noticed 3 teams have not thrown interceptions thus far this year. Can you name them?
Without looking at the list, without throwing an interception this year, I would have said Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, but I won't because I know he has.
Yeah, he has 5, or at least the Ravens have 5.
Kansas City.
Kansas City is one of them.
Who else hasn't thrown an interception? I feel like Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, I'm not there's 3 there, so he probably threw 1. Yeah. I know the Jets got 1 off of their backup QB, so that's one of the 3, but we'll say Tom has.
Russell hasn't. I know that from fantasy, so I'll say Seahawks.
Seahawks are the other one, so there's one team left.
Who hasn't thrown an interception? Let's just go out on a limb here and say fucking, I don't know. I can't even pull something out of my ass. Cleveland. Fuck, I know that's not true.
Yeah, they threw a lot on Monday.
That last night.
Tennessee.
What?
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota, are you finally working out? Did that one draft class with Winston and Mariota finally work out like 5 years later?
Seeing as Tampa has thrown 5. Oh, they're scoring a lot of points, so
yeah, I mean Jameis is throwing the ball super well.
Yeah.
He's figured it out to a degree. Maybe Bruce Arians has figured it out, who knows?
Oh yeah. What's happening in the state of Florida at all times is an enigma. Anyway, let's scroll down here because there's graphs.
7 interceptions. Oh, perfect. There's graphs.
You know how we like graphs here.
It's true. We do like graphs.
It's been a while since we've done it. So the first graph we have is NFL total yards breakdown. So you'll see. This might not be anything worth discussing for long, but I figured I have the numbers, so why not? Just a breakdown as a in blue, we have all of the team's passing yards, which as you can see for damn near every team is the majority. On top of that, in orange is the team's rushing yards. And on top of that is the team's penalty yards, just as a nice little breakdown of where all of everyone's yards are coming from. Do you see anything? I think the only thing I see that's really of interest is the Niners column. Outside of that, I think everything else is just kind of whatever.
Where's the Niners column? Here we go. What's weird about the Niners?
Because they have apparently, I'll do some really quick math here. They have 909 passing yards, and then 800 plus 200, and then over 1,000, like 1,067 penalty plus rushing yards. So less than half of their total yards are coming from passing, which I think just at a glance, they are the only team to do that.
I mean, just looking at it, I'm not really counting penalty yards when I look at these ratios just because it's like negligible. Like it doesn't really matter. I mean, it looks...
The Vikings are also like that too.
Yeah, just looking at that explains itself very well this year. I think the 49ers are fine. I think Minnesota is much worse off just by the eye test. They look awful trying to pass the ball.
I don't know what you mean.
The Steelers graph looks absolutely abysmal to me, especially since we're on our 3rd string quarterback. Just absolutely no ability to run the ball.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well.
I don't want to discuss the Jets graph. So let's scroll down to the other graph that's here because there's two.
Ooh.
Total points. This one's kind of a mess. Again, we're just having a little bit of fun with the numbers because why not? So there is two axes for this. There's two y axes for this. On the left is a measure for points for, since it's at a much higher scale, and then on the right is for total number of passing touchdowns versus rushing touchdowns, just to show where teams have gotten their touchdowns from. We already basically did this with percent, but I thought a visual representation might not be out of the question. As you can see, the Carolina Panthers have more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns, which if you've been following the news, shouldn't be a shock because of Christian McCaffrey. The Green Bay Packers are also in that boat, which I think is fucking bizarre, given that, Aaron Rodgers. The Rams are also in that boat, which Corwin mentioned the struggles of Jared Goff, but still, Minnesota is in that boat because of Kirk Cousins. Who else? And the Browns and Bills as well, which I have nothing to say about, actually.
Nothing. Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird chart. I don't like that it's solid lines because there's no correlation between the levels between any of them. So I just
it was honestly just the cleanest way for me to do it. I
just change it over to scatter, and it's just difficult to look at. So
yeah,
I will sadly say that this is a no-win situation here. But yeah, other than that, it's a fun chart. I really enjoy looking at these, and I really wish I looked at them before we started today so that, I could have broken these down a little bit. Not even broken them down, just had more time to look at them.
Can you believe that the Jets and Dolphins combined have 4 offensive touchdowns this year?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, because the Jets have 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown, and the Dolphins have 2 passing touchdowns and 0 rushing touchdowns. Those two teams combined have 4 touchdowns this year.
Have they played each other?
Is still the fewest touchdowns in the league.
Have they played each other yet?
No.
When's the first game for that?
Does it even matter?
Yes, because I want to watch it.
I genuinely
November 3rd.
Okay. Yeah. I know our
right after the Steelers play them.
Is against not the Patriots. Who's before the Patriots?
The Redskins.
Dallas. We played Dallas first. Yeah, we play Dallas this Sunday and then the Patriots next Monday. So
Oh, I'm looking at the fucking Dolphins schedule. So I was like, Josh, what are you looking at? You're playing the Redskins this week. No, the Dolphins are playing the Redskins this week. I just don't know how to read.
Yeah, we're doing this thing at work. It's like a pick'em pool, and I got to that matchup, Redskins Dolphins, and I'm like, Jesus, who wants it less? I don't know.
Exactly.
All right.
I would just say the Redskins I would say the Dolphins because if they go 0-16 this year, that would be too cruel for them. So this will be their 1 win.
I think I picked the Redskins, but I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. Doesn't. Watch as that game ends in a fucking tie.
All
right. Yeah, how disgusting is that taste? Let's go over to team advanced passing. So, luckily for us, because I as you'll see, there's advanced passing tab as well. That's by player. So fortunately for us, Pro Football Reference has actually added more stuff. They've added aggregated stats for team purposes for the advanced categories, which makes this much easier because there's a lot of teams that have had multiple players at quarterback, not even counting the fact that they're going to have obviously multiple players at running back and wide receiver for the rushing and receiving stats. So this makes our lives infinitely easier. So I highlighted 2 columns here that, again, I put together myself just, again, to talk about efficiency and to just kind of look at where things are coming from. Because, again, the goal for this is to see if anyone's underperforming or overperforming, and I want to kind of get a feel for what that might be. So I thought air yards is something I've been fascinated with since we started talking about this, and I wanted to know what percent of a team's yards are coming strictly in the air. So I'll call that talent, right? Because the wide receiver had to get open, the quarterback had to make the throw. Yards after completion, which we can talk about in a second, all called noise, because there's a lot that can happen after a receiver catches the ball. It could be blown coverage, so there's no one there. It could be a bad tackle on the part of the defensive back who should have been there and just fucked it up. It could be a great play by the wide receiver. A lot of stuff can happen after the catch. But I think, in general, air yards is a good measure of just a well-executed play. What do you think about that?
I mean,
granted, there are, of course, caveats to it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just looking at how we can use these numbers, that's a pretty fair synopsis, you know?
Right. Obviously, there are caveats to this, like seam and go routes, like you're supposed to have enough separation to get down the line without being touched. Like I get it, but in general, so let's sort by largest and smallest for air yards and see who's coming up on top.
Air yards or air yards percentage?
Oh, sorry, air yard percent. My bad. Thank you. And with a cool 69%. Nice. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shockingly, listen to this top five. Tampa Bay, 69%. 68%, the Eagles. Then the Lions and Seahawks are tied for third with 67%. And then in fifth place, the Miami Dolphins at 66%.
Attaboy, Josh Rosen.
Ain't that some shit? It should also be worth mentioning that as a total number of air yards, the Miami Dolphins have the least out of the top five by about 300, which is a lot. They have almost half of the total air yards of Seattle.
I was going to say, well, it looks like they have the least out of everyone, but there's two teams.
Let me guess. I'm going to guess the Jets. Right? The Jets.
Yeah.
And the other team.
We've talked about this exact situation about the lack of air yards in this certain offense on the podcast twice.
It's got to be the Steelers then.
Yeah, it's the Steelers. It's fucking awful.
Wow, the Steelers are below. Oh, but the Jets have a lot fewer air yards. God, I hate watching Luke Falk.
He's not good at quarterback. He's one of those guys who could be could be an offensive coordinator someday. I was going to say he'll be a good offensive coordinator someday, but I'm not going to give him that much credit yet. He just shouldn't be in the NFL starting games.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
Yeah. So what do you think about this top five? This is a weird top five.
It's interesting, to say the least. The Buccaneers, I knew they were going to be number one. The Eagles, I'm very much surprised by. The Lions, I mean, I kind of figured the Lions would be up there. Same with the Seahawks. Miami, I guess it's the only way for them to get yards is just by chucking it downfield. Like, they're so ineffective everywhere else that they have to have big plays if they're ever going to get any yardage. Like, it makes sense in my head. Yeah, that's a rough time. Because I was looking at some of the other categories we have here, like drops and bad throw percentage, and the Dolphins very much lead both those categories.
Yeah, and
they are an enigma.
Well, it could also be because, so look at this. If you go over to yards after completion, the Dolphins have 235 of those, which is, I think, just by eyeballing it, because I feel like resorting, by far the fewest. So this could end up just coming down to talent, which is one thing I was about to bring up. Because as I can convince myself of almost anything, because I'm okay at talking and I'm indecisive. So, I'm wondering if the Dolphins are just here because the receivers just don't know what to do after the catch, or like they don't have the skill to do it, you know, like,
or like they don't have any separation, so they're just getting mugged every time they catch a ball.
Right. Like, maybe, this is passing stats. This isn't receiving stats. I'm going to hop over to the advanced receiving stats real quick because I just want to look at broken tackles. And Miami Dolphins have tied for having the fewest broken tackles as a receiving core with 2.
Oh,
2.
Gross.
Like,
I'm actually going to jump over and see what their passing charts look like.
yeah. So honestly, I'm willing to bet that's probably why they end up ranking so high here, is just because the receivers aren't shit and they can't get out. So what I've been looking for also as I've been going through this is I've been trying to find if there's like pockets somewhere where the teams that you think of as being good are all kind of grouped together, right? Like I have a stretch here where it's Falcons, Texans, Bills, Pats, and Jags, who have all been decent passing teams this year, right? But then that's sandwiched in between the Panthers, which kind of haven't really been a passing team this year, and the Bears, which haven't been a passing team much this year either. So I'm trying to see if there's some kind of way to use this to make you say, well, this is the line of demarcation between our wide receivers can't do anything because they don't have the talent. And at the bottom of this list, which is the Steelers, Jets, Colts, and Raiders, which is just our quarterbacks haven't been talented enough to, or wide receivers haven't been talented enough to get set up for success in the first place. Because the Steelers are playing their backup quarterback. The Jets are playing their backup quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is a viable starter, but as of right now, he is technically, I guess, a backup QB since Luck retired, though you can fight me on that and I won't care. Derek Carr doesn't have a great receivers core. And for the fifth worst team here is Minnesota, and obviously Kirk Cousins has been having a torrid year. So I'm gonna say somewhere in the middle of this is where you want it to have a balance between scheme and skill. But how's that sound to you?
It's another one of those stats that we always seem to run into where it's like this tells a little piece of the puzzle, but it's not telling us enough without all these other puzzle pieces that we need, so we don't even know what the picture is that we're looking at. We can guess, but it's just not clear enough by itself to really know. It's annoying. I want to be able to look at any one stat and be like good, bad, but that's just not the way it is.
So if I go over to our first tab, I'm just going to kind of flip-flop, move around here a little bit.
Total offense?
I'm looking at pass touchdown percent, right? So the top five again here, we went over the Falcons, Skins, Lions, Hawks, and Jags. All right. Of those teams, only the Lions and Seahawks make the top five in air yard percent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that shows that the teams are overperforming, underperforming, or not enough information? Their passing game.
Man, it's hard to say. Like, I know the whole point of this episode is to find a way to answer that question, but if we're talking about the air yard percentage, I would say that's a little bit of overperforming if I had to pick one.
I would actually kind of say the same. Yeah, I think you're probably, because if you take out the Lions and the Seahawks, what's the combined record of this top five? Because the Bucs are a bad team. The Dolphins, I don't think we need to shit on more.
I think the Bucs actually have a pretty decent record so far this year.
You know what? I said it, and then I was like, I don't actually know what I just kind of assume
are
the Bucs, you know?
It says they're third in the AFC South, but they're not actually giving me a record. Hold on.
The Bucs should be in the NFC South. They are 2-3.
Have we gone over the fact that I can't read?
So the Bucs are 2-3. The Eagles are top of that division at 3-2. That's shocking. So we have, but between those two, it's a 500 record, and then you add in the Dolphins 0-4 or 0-5 for the Dolphins.
0-4.
0-4. Then the collective of those three remaining teams are all that collective record is 4 games under 500, which isn't great. So I would also, I guess, say that the Seahawks passing attack is probably overperforming, as is the Lions. The Lions, I think, is an easier sell to say that they're overperforming literally anywhere, just based on
every
history.
Year.
Yeah, literally.
Every year.
The Seahawks is probably a tougher sell, but at the same time, with just how godly of a game that Russell Wilson's been playing,
Oh yeah.
If you told me that he played good but not this level for the rest of the year, which therefore by definition requires some level of regression, even if it's small, that would then qualify as overperforming. So I could be convinced of that too.
Yeah, I mean, like if you told me to start the season that by week 5, Russell Wilson or the Seahawks would have twice as many passing touchdowns as rushing touchdowns, I would call you absolutely crazy and say that's a terrible prediction. But here we are.
Yeah, and I would say that by personnel, the Jets and Steelers for sure are certainly underperforming their potential, again due to the fact that they're missing personnel. But that's because, you know, if Big Ben came back next week, much as Sam Darnold is going to, both of those teams are over the course of the next few weeks after that, they would perform much better because their team is now at the level of personnel that they should be. So they are underperforming. But that's, you know, because they're missing people. So that one's kind of easy.
Right.
All right.
I would love if Big Ben would come back next week, a la Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Well, you know, now Big Ben's free to enlarge his spleen as much as he wants.
Yeah. I'm basically in the state of just jerking off Minkah Fitzpatrick to the point where I hope I forget that we traded a probable top 5 pick for him. So
yeah, it's one of those things you hear analysts talk about. It's like, well, you would have spent a top 5 pick on him. So, you know, that conversation that everyone had when John Gruden traded Khalil Mack for a first round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, that trade in itself is one thing. This trade, it's just, I don't know anymore. Like I have so many thoughts I still have on it, and my thoughts are getting much more blurred the more that we lose. Like I know we shouldn't be a 1-4 team. We're better than that. I also know that there's only so many games left to rebound. So it's just kind of like, all right, I don't want to spend a top 10 pick on Minkah Fitzpatrick, 2 years after he got drafted, whatever it may be. But at the same time, he's still a great player helping. We can skip it.
All right. Real quick, did you happen to look at drop percent?
I did.
Did you see Miami?
Yep, they are very high up there.
Yeah, 8.1%, which leads the league. That's so fucking nuts.
Fucking insane.
Wow. I am just shocked. Second is the Tennessee Titans at 7.1. Which makes the fact they haven't thrown a pick so much weirder.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of shit interceptions are those shit interceptions where the ball bounces off the receiver's hand and like has 3 seconds of airtime and a DB gets there. Like nuts. Oh, I can't believe it. So weird. Then it's the Steelers at 6.5, the Cowboys at 6.4, and the Bills
honestly,
at 6.1.
You could just say Dante Moncrief is at number 3, and he still would be mostly correct.
Fucking true.
Hasn't played in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he was legit like the sole reason the Steelers led this list for like a week or two.
Yeah. He's a guaranteed cut by week 10, by the way. I hope everyone knows that still. Because
would you rather the satisfaction of him being cut or trading him for a 7th round pick?
Oh, I'd rather take the 3rd round pick and cutting him.
Would you get a 3rd round pick for it?
Yeah, we would get a 3rd round compensation. Yeah, compensatory pick.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Okay, shit.
So we don't need to go into details on that because it's very boring and no one will care.
So let's think of drop percent as additional noise, and let's say that a high drop percent means that you're probably. I know it's a talent thing, which is why it's getting a bit muddy. I'm doing this kind of on the fly because I hadn't thought about it, but I was just curious. So let's think of drop percent as just for the sake of argument, a set of underperforming. So like in theory, again, not based in reality, the Dolphins with their 8.1 drop percent, they should probably be performing better in their other stats, but they're being held back by drop percent, which makes sense.
Very much so.
But I'm looking at these top 5 teams, and I'm not sure that would work that way. I think drop percent just has to be about personnel, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah. I mean,
because all of these teams up here don't have the world's greatest wide receivers.
right. Like the Titans have Corey Davis, who's been a disappointment, and A.J. Brown. The Dolphins have Devontae Parker, who is a major bust, and Preston Williams, who's a undrafted rookie. Steelers are a shell of Juju and a bunch of dudes that don't matter. Cowboys have Gallup and Cooper, but that's really it. And then the Bills basically are better off if there was just a bunch of dildos on the field, hoping that the ball would hit one of the suction cups and it would count as a catch.
And they traded Zay Jones today.
It didn't make any sense. It's their biggest weakness.
I was so confused.
They have -3 wide receivers, and they're trading away arguably one of their best ones, who's very much arguably because he hasn't really performed, but still.
A warm body to catch the ball who can run kind of fast. Like,
yeah.
You're fucking weird, man.
I mean, they're down to John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Robert Foster, and then people I've never heard of.
As well, you shouldn't have. All right. All right, let's go over to advanced rushing.
Okay.
There's only one highlighted column here. It's yards after contact percent. So we went over yards before contact and yards after contact previously. Yards before contact is exactly how it sounds. The running back gets the ball, and how many yards does he get before someone touches him? And then yards after contact, how many yards does he get after somebody touches him? So I only did yards after contact percent because I'm not sure how much I care about yards before contact, right?
I care if we're looking at offensive line, but if we're looking at running backs, it's negligible.
Right. So let's take a look at largest to smallest, who is doing the best for yards after contact by a percent, and it is the Tennessee Titans.
You want to 66% the other way, I think, or I guess you would be right if we're looking at the skill of the running back. Yeah,
you're never going to be looking at it both ways.
Yeah, you really could look at it from two different ways to look at two different things,
and we're going to. The Jacksonville Jaguars is 65%, the Pittsburgh Steelers 62%, Detroit Lions 60%, tied with the Seattle Seahawks at 60%. And just because we already brought it up, let's look at the bottom of this list. And we have the Chicago Bears at 29%, the New England Patriots 30%, the Niners 30%, the Browns 31%, and the New York Giants 34% of their yards coming after contact.
It's really funny how teams that, through reputation, typically have good running backs and a good rushing offense are on the two bookends of this. You have the Bears, you have the 49ers, you have the Patriots, and then you have the Titans, the Jaguars, the Steelers, the Seahawks on the other end.
So where do you stand on a team being on the high end of this list versus the low end?
Basically what it's saying is if you have a very high percentage of yards after contact, it's basically your running backs are getting hit either very early and just all of their yards are after contact because they don't have a choice, or they're guys, like we see here, we have Derrick Henry, we have Leonard Fournette, we have James Conner, Chris Carson, bigger backs that are able to just run guys over and are getting good yards, but it also happens to be right after they bulldoze somebody.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. So I agree. I'm going to start with that because I'm tripping over myself. I would say that if I would extend it further, that if you're leading this list, it's probably not sustainable that you're going to be a good team or that your running back's going to give you good production. Because you're just going to get hit a lot. You're just going to get hit so fucking much. And that's just going to be wear and tear over the course of a season.
I mean, look at all these guys at the top. They're all injury prone running backs. Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, James Conner, Kerryon Johnson we could throw in there. All of the Seattle running backs.
Yeah, literally every single one of them.
Todd Gurley's up there with the Rams. Joe Mixon's up there. Like, it's just a lot of guys that just happen to get injured pretty
Melvin
much every
Gordon
year.
gets hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you are having, sorry, so let's go. I'm going to hop back to total offense. I'm going to look at rushing touchdown percent. I'm going to read out the top 5 from here again. The Minnesota Vikings, Packers, Bills, Browns, and Panthers. That's our top 5. So none of those teams appear in our top 5 for yards after contact percent, which I'd say actually probably bodes well for those teams.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch Vikings games or Packers games, Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook are running through some just absolute oceans of space in front of them. So they're not getting any contact, essentially. Yeah, honestly, it's probably a good bet that these teams at the top of the list are going to stay at the top of the list.
So the highest team that appears in our top 5 for yards after contact percent in terms of rushing touchdown percent is the Rams. The Rams are 7th in terms of their rushing touchdowns. They, as a percent of their total points, 33% of their points come from rushing touchdowns. And for yards after contact, the Rams are 8th or 7th, also 7th. So they're 7th, or even keel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they've been using a lot of committee.
Well, I think they kind of have to. What with Gurley's arthritis or tendon? No,
I think it is arthritis, something like that.
So, what makes this interesting to me is, would you say that they're due for a regression? Because if they are, with their passing game being as weak as it has been since Goff has not improved, and he has probably regressed.
He's regressed a lot.
Yeah. I wanted to be gentle, but you can't. He's regressed.
Fuck him.
Do you think that this could be something that's going to end up like could you see a second half slump for the Rams based on the fact that their run game has been kind of mauled by defense?
Honestly, I would argue that they're in for some positive regression with the passing game more than negative regression with the running game.
Oh, well, that's true. I didn't think about it from that end.
I mean, they've kind of had to rely on the running game just because Goff has been so bad and McVay hasn't really been able to open up the offense in front of him. I think the percentages will even out a little bit. I think we'll see a small dip of just a small dip in actual rushing touchdowns as it kind of balances out. But I still think the running backs are going to be effective. With how good Sean McVay has been so far in his career, and with how bad it's looked so far, there has to be positive regression there. All
right, I'm with it. Real quick with the bottom of this list, and then we can move right on. The Bears, Patriots, Niners, Browns, and Giants. What are you making of these guys down here at the bottom of this list?
For rushing touchdown percentage?
For yards after contact percent.
Oh, okay. We're back
in
over
terms
there.
of their rushing production.
I mean, the 49ers, I don't know. I feel like I haven't watched enough of these teams to really give a fair assessment. I mean, the Bears, I know Montgomery's looked really good there. I'm expecting him to perform better. I don't know what's going to go down with the Patriots, with Sonny Michel, how he's going to hold up. I think the 49ers, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
I think it is too. And I think that what I'm about to say is going to make it more complicated.
Oh, perfect.
So the San Francisco 49ers are currently tied for the second lowest yards after contact percent.
Mm-hmm.
They also have the third most rushing yards.
Sure.
So they're getting so much of their yards before contact.
Just huge gaping holes.
Yeah, they out of their 800 even rushing yards, they have 558 of them before contact. So I would venture to say that they're probably due for a regression because that's probably not going to be the case. You're not going to get 70% of your yards before contact for a whole season.
I mean, their backs are small. Breida, Mostert, Tevin Coleman's really the only guy with size, and they have such issues with injuries, and they have been for such a while. They're going to have to get beat up, and things are probably going to get worse before they get better. But then again, it's Kyle Shanahan. All the faith in the world in him.
Yeah, plus, like they are, as of right now, undefeated, which needs to come with a level of luck. So a lot of it could just be, they always say about teams that win championships are very talented, but also lucky at the right time. You have to have luck to win. So it could just be some of that too. But then again, that's the whole thing that we're trying to talk about is some of this stuff is luck, and luck can't last forever, as Andrew showed us earlier this year.
Yay.
Andrew Luck. Anyway,
I miss him.
So next is team advanced receiving, but I wasn't really sure what to look at here since I feel like most of this we kind of covered with passing. I think of it as being like a battery, so I'm not sure what there really is to say about the receiving end of it battery? That wasn't, like pitcher catcher battery. I'm not even sure what there is to say about this that is separate from what we talked about with passing. Is there anything that you want to look at this page or at this sheet in particular that you think can be put back into what we've talked about previously?
I mean, we covered broken tackles to a degree. We've covered drop percentages pretty well. So I think we're pretty good here.
I would say so as well.
Yeah.
All right. So then what I want to conclude with, Corwin, is I would like to make mini predictions that we can follow up with around week like 8 or 9 or so.
Okay. All right. Right off the cuff, no preparation.
That's
coming
right.
At me.
For full disclosure, have not come up with fucking anything either. We're going to do this on the fly. I want you to give me, I don't know, let's say 2 teams you think. No, let's go with one. One team that you think is going to regress in terms of their production, and one team that is going to what's the opposite of regress? Progress.
It's just positive and negative regression.
All right, yeah, that's a lot easier. Give me one positive, one negative regression team. One for each.
All right, let me go back to total offense. Let's go to yards. I feel like that's a little bit more fair than points. I think the Ravens are going to finish outside of the top 7 in total offense. They're number 3 right now. And I think Pittsburgh will positively regress outside of the, let's say, bottom 7.
All right, 2 AFC North teams.
Are you writing these down?
I am.
Perfect, because I am not.
Yeah, I got you. I've learned over the months that if one of us doesn't write these down, we don't.
It's gone forever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone forever.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? Listen back to our podcast and figure it out?
What's funny is I do listen back, and then I think, oh, I should write that down, and then I don't because I'm like working, and then I forget, and then it's like, Oh
well.
All right, I will also go just sort by yards real quick since that is the more fair way of doing it. I'm going to be a total cheapie, and for positive regression, I'm going to pick the Jets because this is the same conversation we had when we talked about Chris Davis possibly winning comeback player of the year. They're so bad. They're so bad that literally a moderate increase in raw yardage would be such a massive increase in percentages that like they'd have to have a big improvement.
I'm going to make you give me a number because if the only team they literally have to beat out is the Dolphins by the end of the year, then I'm just going to say that's a sham pick and shouldn't be counted. So you have to tell me where they're like how far back they're going to regress or how far up they're going to regress.
Well, so let's do it like this. So they've played 4 games and they have, so there's 718 yards in 4 games. It's 179.5 yards per game.
Holy shit, that's really bad.
Yeah, that's fucking awful. So let's say they increase it by 25%, which if you gave a team 25% better offense per game, they'd take that in a goddamn heartbeat. That's still only 224.38 yards per game. So I think a 25% increase is pretty fucking fair.
I would honestly say if I could add on to this, I think they'll finish out the season averaging from like here on out. I think they're going to finish with like over 250 yards a game. Man, that was a sentence that I struggled to put together in my head.
I thought you did a good job.
Thank you.
That would be a 40% increase.
You know what? Putting the chips where my mouth is.
No, put the chips where your mouth is. I want you to put the chips where your mouth is.
Shit.
Put the chips in your mouth.
I was picturing in my head me sitting at like a poker table at a casino, like putting all my chips in. And the saying is put the money where your mouth is for those of you that
now I'm picturing you at a zoo putting all the chips in your mouth. Honestly, it sounds so crazy, but a 40% increase in the Jets' production is possible, again, only because their production is so fucking
low.
bad. So it's a cheapy pick. It doesn't even feel like a homer pick, but it is definitely a cheapy pick.
I swear to God, I've seen Le'Veon Bell run the Wildcat, or at least run the triple option. Please, if Darnold is not ready to come back this week, make him your quarterback, and you will succeed far better than you will with Luke Falk. Just go full Georgia Tech.
Honestly, I wouldn't even
West
be mad
Virginia
at that point. We should sign ODB as our OBJ, Old Dirty Bastard is dead, R.I.P.
Old
OBJ
Dirty Bastard.
as the ghost.
Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. Pass me the mic so I can toss it away.
Hey, daddy, baby, I got your money. All right. I'm going to pick the Dallas Cowboys as my negative regression pick.
Smart man. You've seen it in the tea leaves the past 2 weeks.
Actually, I might change my pick here. I just kind of picked them. I said that because I just don't like the Cowboys.
Oh, but that was a good pick.
It is a good pick, but I am actually going to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay, you don't think Minshew Mania is for real?
I think he could be, but I think that they're overall 2-1. How many rushing touchdowns do you think they have this season?
5.
1.
No, 4. Ooh, wow.
1.
That's really not good.
54% of their points have come from passing touchdowns, which is seemingly really good.
Yeah.
5% from rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's not great.
So that's a pretty one-dimensional looking team. So I'm going to say that they've probably been overperforming a bit.
That's weird because Leonard Fournette has been playing well. It's just, I guess he just has been getting in the end zone.
Yeah, and I just have to think that that's going to come in some way to bite them in the butt. Plus, rookie quarterback, their teams don't have film on him at the beginning, so now there's going to be more film. So right now they're in the top 5. I'll pick them to just drop out of the top 5. I don't have a number in mind for that, but I will pick the Jaguars for my negative regression team.
Well, as a proud owner of a Garner Minshew fan account, I say, fuck you, sir.
And thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome, pal.
I love that.
Oh, of course.
Shout out all my Jews. It is Erev. No, it's not even Erev Yom Kippur anymore. It's now Yom Kippur, the day of repentance. I have nothing to apologize to any of you sons of bitches, but shout out to the most important day on the Jewish calendar and the eventual conclusion of the High Holy Days. Do you want to talk baseball for a second?
What would be like a super racist, a super anti-Semitic, other like most important day of the year for like the Jewish community?
So like, if you were like, shout out this day that would be offensive.
Black Friday. Yeah. I feel like
shout out the day the Jews killed Jesus.
Okay, let's talk baseball.
Yeah, you made a recovery.
Oh God.
So as we're recording this, only one of the LSD,
yes.
Only one of the LDSs have been concluded. It's Yankees swept the Twins, as we all saw coming, which was a weird sentence.
Home runs, though?
Huh?
Who hit the most home runs?
Actually, the Yankees. They hit one more home run.
Get fucked, Minnesota.
Yep, the entire state of Minnesota was once an ancient Indian burial ground, and they are cursed.
I mean, it's Minnesota with all those lakes. I wouldn't be surprised.
So the Yankees in the championship series, as of right now, of course, this game will be concluded by the time this happens, as will all of the divisional series will be concluded by the time this gets recorded. The Rays are beating the Astros 3-0.
Really?
Really? Granted, it's the top of the second, but still.
Greinke's pitching today, right? Or was that
Verlander.
Verlander? Ooh, that's not good.
So we have 2 Game 5s in the National League, and we'll potentially have a Game 5 in the American League. We'll see. But tell me about the National League. What do you think about what's happened with them so far this postseason?
I haven't watched any yet, so I don't know. I've only watched the Astros.
Oh, well, the Cardinals and Brewers are tied to the Dodgers and Nationals are going to Game 5. Can you fucking believe that?
I mean,
I'm shocked.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't think I would have expected that. I mean, granted, no, I don't think that is that crazy because the Nationals pitchers are so good and so crazy that they got to get 2 wins in there somehow.
The Nationals starting pitchers are.
Oh, that's very true. Their relievers, suck donkey dick.
Where do you think the Nationals bullpen ranked in the American League last season? In all of baseball last season.
27th.
Close, 24th.
Wow.
Like, they're really, really fucking bad. So, I'm surprised only because of that.
That's true.
What they've been doing is interesting. They've been doing the thing that the Red Sox did last year, where your starters come in relief on what would have been their throw days.
Mm-hmm.
So
I did see the headlines for that with Scherzer and Strasburg coming in like that.
Yeah, Corbin came in like that too, but he let up 6 runs, so they didn't like to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a reason I didn't see that part.
Yeah. If the Nationals don't beat the Dodgers and just exit in the first round, do you think that that's a good season for them? Since a lot of people pick them to not even fucking make the playoffs.
Well, as someone who did pick them to make the playoffs, I'll say it's a good season. Your first season without Bryce, and you still make it to the playoffs. Yeah, decent win. I'm sure inside the organization it's a loss, but realistically, looking at that team, that's a good spot.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, I'm looking for.
I just want to say, they're so young. They have to realize they're going to be back. They have to be looking forward in this.
Oh, I think they certainly are. Plus, their owners are very willing to spend money, and if that's the case, I'm very willing to bet that they'll be spending money in the offseason on relief pitchers since their starting pitching is just okay.
But, I mean, they have a lot of young players, but at the same time, some of their stars are just so damn old.
Ryan Zimmerman.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call him a star anymore, but Scherzer's up there, Strasburg's getting older, Rendon's getting older.
Oh, I wouldn't call Rendon getting older. I guess everyone's getting older, but
I mean, I feel like he's still in his 20s, but he looks 38.
Yeah, he doesn't look great.
I don't know how old he is.
I'm going to say he's 29, maybe 30. I don't think he's over that.
Can you tell me what month he was born?
Why the fuck would I know that?
Well, because you hit the age spot on. He's 29.
Oh, okay. Good for me.
He was born on June 6th, by the way. Happy birthday, Anthony Rendon.
Fuck you. Yeah, no, this shit's been wild. I'm excited to see what the next few days holds for us. Actually, you know what? If the Rays, fuck. There's only so many teams in the American League. If the Rays end up winning today, then this actually come out on the day that Game 5 will be happening, which would be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I'm really hoping that happens. That'd be so much fun.
Who would you have in Game 5?
I'd still pick the Astros. I mean, you'd be foolish to bet against the Astros. But as a Yankees fan, I'd prefer the Rays.
Naturally.
Yeah, so we shall see, my friend. But I am certainly interested. And I'm excited. There was one other thing I was going to ask you about. And I'm annoyed because I can't remember what the fuck it was.
Josh, we just talked about this. You got to write shit down, my man.
I know I'm so mad. It was a notification I got, and I was like, oh, I should save this notification so I can ask Corwin about it. And then I fucking didn't.
Do you know what sport it is?
No, that's the worst fucking part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tearing me up inside. I'm a shell of a man.
That was funny. Well, if you can't think about it, why don't we save it for next week? Next 2 days? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, whenever. All right. Any final thoughts, or should we wrap this bitch up?
Wrap this bitch up.
All right. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. If you want to hit us up via Gmail, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And if you want to find the show notes for this episode and previous episodes, you can do so at juicingthenumbers.wixsite.com/website or juicingthenumbers.com. And until Thursday, until Monday, y'all have a good one.
Bye.